Waiting. Things are a little more complicated when we could sign up online and sign up in person too, to try to keep it straight. But I'd like to open the Monday, June 7th, 2021, 6 p.m. Board of County Commissioners meeting. And as usual, we open our meeting with an invocation. And this evening, Commissioner Jerry Simpson, if you...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, if there's anyone who has more influence on you as a student in middle school and high school as your teacher, it's that of an athletic coach. I had 3 sons that went to Parkwood Middle and Parkwood High. They played about every sport imaginable, and we had a number of great coaches down there. We had one that they speak very highly of, who in addition to being an athletic coach, has now become a life coach. Pastor Lynn Coble is pastor at Roanoke Baptist Church here in Union County. He has a wife, Donna, of 27 years, and like me, has 3 sons, Josh, 24, Matt, 21, and Jacob, 11. Lynn, Commissioner Rate, when I told him that you were going to offer the invocation, said that was probably a major transition going from a football coach to a pastor. I don't know if he's talking about vocabulary or what he was referring to, but anyway, we welcome you, and we'll ask you to come up and offer an invocation.
Thank you for your invitation tonight. Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we just first lift up our praises and thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us and our county. Dear Lord, we thank you for the rain you've sent in the past week. We thank you for the rain that we're expecting in the coming days. Lord, you know our needs, and you always fulfill them. Lord, I lift this board up to you tonight. I pray, dear Lord, that you would give them guidance, discernment, and direction in every step they take. I pray, dear Lord, that they would seek your face and your will in every decision and every thought that they have. Lord, I pray for their families. I pray that you just put a hedge of protection around them. Give them strength. Just wrap your arms around them, let them know you're there. We thank you for the time that these men and women spend away from their families and the job that they're doing. We pray, dear Lord, that you just continue to give them discernment in every decision and everything they do. And Lord, we pray for our county. We pray that there might be repentance and there might be revival that break out across this county. And tonight, dear Lord, I just lift the heavenly name of Jesus. And it's in that name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Lynn. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this evening we will begin with a public hearing for the FY 2022 proposed operating and capital budget. The FY 22 manager's proposed operating and capital budget message was filed with the Union County Clerk and submitted to the Board of Commissioners on May 28th. The budget is available on the county's website and in the Clerk's Board's office for public inspection. The Board of County Commissioners received the presentation for the FY 2022 proposed operating and capital budget on June 3rd. During today's meeting, the county will hold a public hearing. In addition, and all appropriate advertisements and notice have occurred. So we'll open our public hearing, and with public hearings, each speaker must address the board from the lectern. They will be asked to begin their remarks by giving their name, stating whether they are residents of Union County, and indicating the municipality within which they reside, if any. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make remarks, provided that this limitation shall not apply to staff or staff representatives, or shall it apply to applicants for rezoning permits. A speaker may not yield his or her time to another speaker. Speakers shall limit their remarks to those addressing the subject of the public hearing. Speakers may leave written comments and or supporting documentation, if any, with the clerk of the board. Our first speaker is Brittany Bolden.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me? Okay. My name is Brittany Bolden. I am a Union County resident. And was that all the questions? Sorry, I was doing something.
Municipality
What?
that you live in.
I don't know. I think we're in Matthews, but we're kind of in Weddington.
Okay, Weddington's good.
We're like right in between that and Indian Trail. So
Okay.
our address is Matthews, but everybody tells me it's Weddington. We just moved in August. So
Okay,
no one
thank
will give me a plain answer. If you can, that would be wonderful.
We can work it out.
I don't know where I live. It's never a good thing. Good evening. My name is Brittany Bolden. I am the Union County Chair of Moms for Liberty, an organization that is dedicated to fighting for the survival of America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. We just launched this chapter 2 months ago and are already approaching 500 members and growing daily. I think based on that, it is safe to say that parents are mobilizing. First, I want to take a moment to thank every one of you who serve on this board. I know that it takes time away from your families, and I appreciate your sacrifice and willingness to serve. I'm here tonight to get on the record the truth about a very dangerous and deceptive ideology that is infiltrating every institution in America. It goes by many different names: critical race theory, culturally responsive teaching, wokeism, and anti-racism, to name a few. But make no mistake, it is Marxism. Repackaged Marxism made to look better than good in an effort to sell a utopia to the masses that will end up where it always does: communism, death, and destruction. Let us not forget the results of Mao, Stalin, and Lenin. We all know the saying, those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Well, we should update that saying to, those who know history should also be savvy enough to notice a rebranding spin job, or you will be doomed to repeat it. Because that is exactly what is actively happening in our country now. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I wish I was. I'm being 100% serious when I say that our country is on the precipice of losing what our founders spilled their blood for. If we do not act, and quickly, we will be the ones who let the American dream fail. I personally, and all the members of Moms for Liberty, are not willing to just roll over and let that happen. I'm here today to ask you to rise up and join us in protecting this land of opportunity. If we lose her, the world will be a darker place, as the shining city upon the hill will no longer illuminate the path to liberty. So what do? Well, we fight locally. We make sure this ideology isn't infiltrating our local institutions, and especially our schools. We have to be proactive. We can no longer assume that everything is fine and on the up and up. We have to ensure that it is. We have to be vigilant. That is especially true in regards to the budget. We have to read the fine print. Most of the time, federal funds come with conditions. This is how the federal government slyly steps on states' rights to gain more power. We have to refuse all money from the federal government that comes with the condition of having to uphold and implement any of Biden's 60 executive orders that he issued in just his first 100 days. His first being Executive Order 13984, which talks about advancing equity through the federal government. Notice it says equity and not equality. They sound similar, and that is by design. Make no mistake, they are very different. Equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equal outcomes. That is communism. So right out of the gate, Biden has made it very clear what and who he is for. And based on how life ends up for the citizens under regimes touting equity, we can logically conclude that Biden isn't for America or we the people. Thank you very much. I just ask that you look at the budget and we don't pass anything for the school budget that has CRT, critical race theory, anti-racism, or any of that in it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Jonathan Thomas.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Commissioner. My name is Jonathan Thomas. I live in unincorporated Union County. Just wanted to discuss the upcoming budget, some of the things that I was watching at Thursday night's meeting. Brought up several questions I had. Before I get started with that, I do want to thank all of you for your work here keeping such a fiscal responsible budget, as well as the manager and staff. Your efforts have kind of created a little bit of the issue that we've got. Union County is quite a popular place. Everyone wants to be here. Low taxes, good schools, and caused the property values to rise significantly to unprecedented levels. After watching the meeting online, I saw several items that were somewhat in conflict with what I've been hearing on social media, so I just had a few questions I wanted to pose just for thought, so people such as myself may understand them better. First off, I was watching a slide where the median home value will net an increase of $29 in your property taxes per year. I don't recall what that value was. There was a little picture on the side of the screen that cut that off. And the average vehicle tax will decrease by about $19 per year per vehicle, and that was a $13,000 a year vehicle. So if the average household owns one home but two cars, wouldn't that be a tax decrease? I've seen nothing but tax increase, tax increase, tax increase, despite the fact, yes, there is a 1 cent more than revenue neutral per $100 of assessed value increase proposed, but I don't see that when you actually put the numbers. Also, between 2020 and 2021, the county saved roughly $14 million in operating expenses due to cost cuts and deferrals compared to 2019. Fiscal year 2022 budget is still less than 2019 levels. Employee benefits dropped $5 million in 2020. This was due to spending deferrals caused by the pandemic. Union County Public Schools budget requested a 7.4% increase, with the majority of that going to teachers, bus drivers, and other employees needed for Union County Public Schools. Some of this is due in part to the state funding of education remaining at 2018 levels. This issue is front and center at the 5/10/21 Board of Commissioners meeting, where 4 out of 5 commissioners voted in favor of allocating $2.5 million in funding, one-time staff bonuses for Union County Public Schools. Pandemic has forced us to rob Peter to pay Paul, keep from raising taxes with decreased revenues. Do you agree that we have an obligation to get back to pre-pandemic funding allocations? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes all the individuals that have signed up. Therefore, I will close the public hearing on the budget process.
That's not true. I signed up previously today before the noon deadline.
Well, come on then. I'm sorry I didn't have notification that you, unless we did that, we may have got you on one of the other public hearing things. Go ahead, sir. Your name, please.
Hey, good evening. My name is Brian Helms, and I live in Monroe. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. I would like to address mask mandates and vaccines as it pertains to the children of Union County and the $46 million of federal funds appropriated to Union County through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. On May 13th, the CDC updated guidance regarding masks and face coverings for the general public. This no doubt forced the hand of our governor to follow suit on May 14th as he lifted mask mandates in our state. Although this was heralded as a return to normal by many, because masks will still be required in schools per DHHS toolkit, it also signifies a double standard for kids. So let me ask, why do we have this double standard? Why can adults gather together in public without masks, but kids can't at school? What's the answer? Well, in the wake of the CDC's announcement that vaccines are available for children as young as 12, perhaps Biden has already answered this question when he threatened. The choice is simple. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do. Now at least 2 different school districts in this state are looking at offering vaccination clinics. 2 children at school, closer to charter schools, are doing the same thing. Charter schools in this county are doing the same thing, and they're doing it on field day during EOGs. And this is vaccines for a virus that has a 99% survival rate. Requiring our children to be masked in school and incentivizing them to receive vaccinations in order to receive the God-given ability to breathe is not only discriminatory, it's downright criminal. Are vaccines the new mask? Are counties and North Carolina school districts being incentivized for offering vaccine clinics? From what I read, it certainly appears so. Vaccination campaigns are included in as an eligible use category in the Fiscal Recovery Fund provisions of ARPA. Let me be clear. The Union County Board of Education is already handcuffed by legislation that binds them to following the requirements of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services Toolkit. This idea and deal was passed in order to reopen schools, and now we're dealing with the fallout that Governor Cooper and Mandy Cohen can indirectly mandate anything that they want through the toolkit. According to the BOE, this is why they will not make masks optional in our schools. Now the federal government is offering Union County money, but what's the catch? Are we going to use this money for vaccination clinics? Are we going to incentivize our kids to take vaccinations? How about passports? Free money is never free. I urge you guys to remember that you are elected representatives. What you decide today will be remembered by the voters tomorrow. Don't make the mistake of selling us out long-term for the short-term gain. I urge you to remember your actions regarding the Second Amendment last year when you guys made Union County a 2A sanctuary. Work with our BOE, our Board of Education. Make it clear to Cooper that we have medical freedom of choice in this county, and do not use these funds to further any present or future unconstitutional mandates. I call on this board tonight to make Union County a sanctuary of vaccine freedom of choice. We are not descended from fearful men. It's time for us to remember that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. We did find that where you registered for informal comments. We're good, okay?
One more. She was too. I am too.
Okay, I'm sorry. And you're set on the budget?
Yes, I signed up at actually 12:03 this afternoon. I emailed Lynn, and she said that she would try to get IT to open up the website for me to formally register on the website. So
Okay.
I have completed that.
Name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Deb Helms, and I live in Union County, not a specific municipality, just Union County, thankfully. I'm here tonight. I don't even have a speech. I'm here tonight. I'm a concerned mother speaking for my children. That's all I can do. A couple of months ago, I was a mother sitting home instructing a child through remote kindergarten, and that was not an easy thing for me to do. But that's what I had to do because I couldn't bear the thought of my child sitting in a mask for 7.5 hours a day at school, the physical and psychological stress it was putting her through. I couldn't do it. So I spent the past couple of months speaking at the school board meeting and doing a lot of research and learning a lot, and thankfully, I encountered a couple of groups who are also like-minded parents trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to fight for our children. We're all trying to make a difference. And you guys were very proactive back in January. You went ahead and jumped ahead of Cooper and made us a 2A sanctuary. So thank you very much for that. And we need to find out what it is that you can do to try to help the school system with some of the same things. You authorized some of their budget. The $46 million that's coming from Biden, we don't know what it's going to be used for. But I can tell you from my beliefs, I don't think it's going to be used for anything good. Hopefully, you can find a way to use the loose terms that he has given with that money. But mandated vaccines in school are not the way to go with it. This is a brand-new vaccine. It has not been tested. It has not been approved. And that is not the way that we need to go with it. And we know that that's the way they're going to push it very hard. And we can't do that. So we need to ask you, as our elected officials, you have taken the steps to protect our county from some of Cooper's ridiculous, illegal mandates. We need you to try to do the same to try to protect our children. Last week, actually, at the school board meeting, I opened my speech with a very powerful quote from Ronald Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. This generation is losing the freedom. They are trying to get their hands on this generation, and our freedom is gone. We need you to work with the school board. We need you to do everything we can. We need you to be in front of Cooper, 2 steps in front of him, and you need to make it stop. I have brought my 5- and 3-year-old to every meeting we've gone to so that they can see what the power of standing up and speaking your voice, because a silent voice is never heard. So if you just sit by, you're going to find yourself in the situation that we are in now. This needed to start about a year ago. But so many people sat fearful for too long, and it has gone too far. So we have hard work, and I'm just here to ask you, do what you can to help us with the next generation and help protect their freedoms. Please.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Helms. With that, I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move on to our next item, which is a public hearing for Bonakema USA, Project Blue. Ron, I think you're going to help us with this.
Yes, sir.
Chairman Helms, Commissioners, Manager Watson. At the March 15th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting, our office presented a request for a Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $512,200 paid over a 5-year period for Project Blue. At the time, the company seeking the incentive requested that their name be kept confidential due to internal decision-making timelines. I am pleased to share with you tonight that the name of the company requesting the incentive is Bonakema USA Incorporated. As background, the company, Bonakema USA, is headquartered in Sweden, and they have been operating in Union County, specifically in the Monroe Corporate Center, since 2008. The company currently employs 50 people. Bona produces very well-known hardwood floor care products, as well as sports floor paints here at the Monroe facility. These paints are used on every NCAA and every NBA floor or basketball court. Bonakema is seeking the Economic Development Incentive Grant in support of the purchase of a 35-acre tract of land in the Monroe Corporate Center and the potential construction of a 266,000 square foot expansion. The approximate total investment is $19,700,000 with a potential job creation of 100 full-time positions paying an average of $45,000 per year. Since the March 15th meeting, Bonakema USA has executed a purchase agreement with the City of Monroe for the 35-acre tract of land in the corporate center, but a final decision by Bona on the building expansion is still pending at this time. Therefore, incentives remain a very important factor for the project. Given these details, we are requesting your consideration tonight of a Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant in an amount not to exceed $512,200 over 5 years based upon the Union County Tax Office's appraised value each year on the company's anticipated investment of $19,700,000. And that's an investment in land, building, and equipment and machinery. Based on this investment and holding all factors constant, including depreciation, the company would pay estimated ad valorem taxes on the new taxable investment of $719,936 over the grant period. Please note that when we apply the 2021 depreciation schedule and hold all other factors constant, the project would produce approximately $657,298 in tax revenue over the grant period, and the grant payout would adjust accordingly over the grant period to $467,600. So it would adjust accordingly. Of course, actual tax revenue to Union County will be based on the current tax rate applied to the assessed value of the investment each year after depreciation. The project has a cost-benefit analysis as we do with all of our projects, we perform this cost-benefit analysis. And this project shows a 1.98 to 1 return over the first 5 years of the project or the grant period, and that increases to 3 to 1 over the life of the project. The Monroe Union County Economic Development Board of Advisors reviewed this project at their March 9th, 2021 meeting and at their May 5th, 2021 meeting, where they unanimously supported us presenting this opportunity to you tonight for your consideration. We also presented the project to Monroe City Council at their March 9th, 2021 meeting, where a similar economic development grant was awarded unanimously, and at their May 11th, 2021 meeting, where they approved the purchase agreement for the sale of that 35-acre tract of land. Therefore, the Monroe Union County Economic Development Board of Advisors and staff recommend the award of this Step 3 Performance-Based Economic Development Incentive Grant to Bonakema USA Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $512,200 to help secure this $19.7 million investment. I thank you for the opportunity to present this, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Ron, I received a call today with a question, and I know the answer, but I'm going to let you explain it to the public.
Sure.
That because we're looking at a reval rate going down, that the reval rate was considered in these calculations.
Yes.
Can you explain that, please, sir?
First of all, it certainly is considered in these calculations. The great thing about our incentive program is that it anticipates changes from annual budget increases or decreases and in periods of revaluation. It achieves this by the review and modification of the grant factor on an annual basis. Yep. If the grant factor needs to be modified, it's typically brought to the county commission 1 or 2 meetings after the budget adoption. The annual grant payments are based on each year's grant factor. The grant factor in the public hearing process is used to establish that not to exceed amount for the grant. Because of this, it provides assurance that the grant payment is less than the revenue received by the county. So to answer your specific question, we have to use the current adopted grant factor, which for this level of investment is 2.6%. So as an example, if we were to use the county manager's proposed budget and anticipated tax rate, this project would produce approximately $579,000 in ad valorem revenue, and the new not-to-exceed grant grant payout would be adjusted down to $413,000 as a grant payout. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes, it does, and I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Commissioner Rushing?
So, and the city of Monroe also did a grant, and the same, I guess, math, if they do not decrease their rate by the same percentage that the county does, what happens to the grant on their side? Because you work for both.
That is true. That is true. Actually, the grant factor would adjust as well. If the most important component of that grant factor is the tax rate. So if their tax rate were to change, the program is set up to reflect that. So it's a way to protect the granting bodies so that we never receive less, we never pay out more than what we receive. So
Okay.
Commissioner
So it goes both ways. It can,
it certainly does.
like a town that's keeping their full tax rate for an increase, they wouldn't be affected. And Monroe's not. They're going back some. So they got protections, we have protections.
That is exactly correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
With that, I will open the public hearing. And no one has signed up, so therefore I'll close the public hearing. Next, we have the Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan hearing. And Bjorn, I take it you're going to help us.
I am. Evening, Chairman Helms, members of the board, Manager Watson. Short presentation just to update on what you are here to receive comments on. This is the public hearing on the Union County 2050 draft plan. Comprehensive plans guide to the county's future, informs current and future decision makers on where we are and where we want to go. And over the course of the last 18 months, we have, we believe, accomplished that in terms of giving guidance to you, recommendations on how to grow into the future and address existing and projected issues. We have an adopted vision that was adopted approximately a year ago. Has a lot of important guiding principles that were reflected in the comprehensive plan that you received and was out for comment regarding increased capacity to address a range of community issues, recognition of higher density residential, retail, and employment in designated areas, convenient accessibility between such land uses, complementary development patterns along the corridors. This is a reference to all of the municipalities we have and the different development standards we may have, the idea of both rural and urban development and recognition of agriculture as a key industry. We have a scenario that we're implementing that's called the advancement scenario. It was adopted last fall that recommends a revised land use map, which I'm about to show you, upgraded regulations to apply to new development, and new programs to address a range of issues, including transportation, drinking water, litter, and broadband internet. This is the revised land use map. It is significantly less dense and has fewer areas for upzoning compared to the existing land use map that we use for rezoning requests. It also includes a new transition zone designation that addresses the concerns by many municipalities regarding inconsistent development patterns on their boundaries. So that is something that we believe is an effective tool to help address that concern between multiple municipalities. And so the process we've gone through since the coordinating committee completed their work in February was that we presented to the planning board in March for information. They took a month to review it. They made a recommendation to you in April. They did have a couple comments regarding drinking water. They felt that that was a really important concern, and the county should do more to address that. They also had concerns over the quarter-cent sales tax regarding the partnership with the NCDOT to deliver projects. So that was a concern regarding that recommendation. And so this was presented to you last month. We requested a public hearing. We since advertised for that. We didn't receive any comments during the month that was open for comment. So we are here tonight to hear from the public regarding the comprehensive plan, and then based on this feedback, sometime in the future, based on your guidance, we will bring a plan to you for adoption. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, it would be to open up the hearing.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Bjorn.
Thank you.
And we have individuals. With that, I'll open up the public hearing. And I think our first speaker will be Charles Walkup Jr.
That is my name, and I'm a native of this county and now a resident again, thank goodness, after 40-some years in Charlotte. I want to express appreciation to the planning board and all the volunteers that spent a lot of time and energy on this plan, and there are many good things in it. But I'm asking the commissioners not to approve the plan as it stands right now, because there is, in my opinion, a seriously critical omission. Now, in what Bjorn just showed, there were aspects of it noted there. What I'm talking about is the creeping urbanization, converting rural farm, forest land into urbanized areas. You can see from the map the parts that are still there. But I contend that we're at the critical point here. And the American Farmland Trust did a nationwide study, and a year ago provided me North Carolina, and their assessment was, and this was from 2000 to 2016, the rate of conversion statewide was high, but the policy response was moderate. They also supplied me the statistics for Union County as of 2016. There's over 409,000 acres in the county, and at that point, about 5 years ago, just slightly more than half, 208,000, were still rural forest land. I think it's not unreasonable to assume in the past years we have reached that and perhaps past that critical point. And unless this plan addresses the seriousness of this, it will just go on, and once you reach a certain point, you can't fix it. So I think the plan needs to state explicitly one of two things. Either A, our long-range goal is to eventually let this county become completely urbanized, like Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And if not, if that is not the intention, then it needs to state that and include some beginning strategies to prevent that happening. Because without some actual planning as to how to do that, I don't think it's going to happen. The creek will just continue to go on. So I'm asking you not to approve it as currently.
Thank you, Charles. Next, we have Wyatt Dunn.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm Wyatt Dunn. I'm the mayor of Stallings, and I live in Stallings, obviously. Jerry, I'd like to thank you for your comments about coaches and how they affect our student athletes. I'm heavily involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes in Union County, and I know the effect coaches have on our student athletes, so thank you for your comments. Tonight, I'd like to address the quarter-cent tax rate increase that Stallings would like to support. I'm here on behalf of the Town Council of Stallings to support the quarter-cent increase to fund transportation projects, especially the light rail coming in that's proposed to come into Union County through Stallings. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Mayor Pro Tem and former Mayor Linda Paxton, who's also the Vice Chair of CARTPO. To me, she's a resident expert on transportation issues in Union County, so when she talks, I listen about transportation issues, and I hope you do too. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Wyatt. As he said, Linda.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Dunn. Mr. Dunn gives me a lot more credit about transportation planning than is deserved, but Mr. Chairman, honorable commissioners, I appreciate the opportunity. I am Linda Paxton, and I live at 112 Eagle Crest Drive in Stallings. And I know this hearing tonight is for the 2050 plan, but as Mr. Dunn said, I want to speak to you about an important matter that did not get included in the plan, and that is the quarter-cent sales tax and putting that on a referendum for this fall. And I was asked by the council and the mayor to address that issue with you tonight. Poor road conditions and congestion is the #1 complaint we hear from our residents. And the most recent evaluation that I've seen reports that at least 34% of our rural roads are in mediocre or poor condition. And poor roads cost drivers $1.7 billion each year in extra vehicle repairs and operating costs. And additionally, poor roads are a factor in 30% of fatal accidents. None of you were born in the 1930s, and thankfully neither was I. But in the 1930s, North Carolina was touted as the good road state. But our declining tax revenues and the escalating construction cost have contributed to serious funding shortfalls and lengthy delays in project completions. We are at a critical crossroads for addressing our mobility needs for the long term. And while highway construction and widening projects will continue to be extremely important for our region, we need to demonstrate support for additional transportation options, especially transit. The towns of Stallings, Matthews, and Indian Trail were awarded a federal planning grant in 2019 for transit-oriented development. We presented resolutions to the Metrolina Transit Commission in support of extending the Silver Line into Union County. In April of 2020, the Metrolina Transit Commission adopted a refined preferred alternative route that shows the Silver Line coming into Stallings along Highway 74 with a station near the new Atrium Hospital and also a station in Indian Trail. Implementation of this plan will necessarily require financial participation from the county. Adding a tax on our citizens is never an easy decision, but the payoff over the long haul is monumental. Charlotte made a bold move in 1997 by voting in a half-cent sales tax to build the Lynx Blue Line. And that tax was resoundingly reaffirmed in 2007 with 70% of the voters supporting it. We believe that Union County voters are also ready to take a bold step to support the extension of the Silver Line. Some naysayers argue that light rail doesn't pay for itself. The reality is no transportation pays for itself. I would, however, remind you that the Lynx Blue Line has attracted to date just under $3.3 billion in private real estate investment. And the extension out to the university that opened in 2018 already has $1.17 billion in new development. We have 40,000 county residents commuting into Charlotte from Union County to work every day. We desperately need another alternative. The Silver Line will give residents the opportunity not only to get to work on a reliable time schedule, but also to get to the airport, to get to the Panther Stadium, the Knight Stadium, and other stops in the area. Please give residents the option of voting for this tax through a referendum on the ballot this fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next, we have Loretta.
One of these days, you're going to be able to say that last name. I am Loretta Manley. I live in Union County. I'm very proud about that fact. And I am here to speak in favor of, I forgot to say I live in Monroe. I am here to speak in favor of the Environmental Committee's visions, in particular that litter task force. I've only been talking about this for 4 or 5 years now. And just in case you forget, I know Commissioner Simpson. I mean, I mix you two up all the time. Commissioner Helms. I know I cracked you up when I wore this when you all presented Litter Busters with a proclamation. Anyway, I'm known as the Litter Queen, and I'm very proud of that and humbled by that, too. I founded Litter Busters not long after I moved here 10 years ago because my road frontage that leads to my subdivision was in such bad shape with litter. Since then, we've come a long way. Litter Busters had a little over 200 friends on our Facebook page about a year ago. We are now almost 700. And what happened is after COVID and people started getting out and looking around, they realized that our roadsides are atrocious, and COVID in many ways added to that. So although I'm here to beg you to approve that litter task force, because we need to bring people and government together to come up with plans, with ideas, with creative ideas, because none of the things we've done in the past have worked. Anyway, with that in mind, think about how everything in that visioning for the environment actually impacts each other. You know, if you can correct litter, you can automatically correct some of the other things in that vision. So please, please consider that task force. Let us citizens work with you all in government to make Union County a better place to live. Thank you.
Loretta, you understand that we just have to say Loretta. Everybody, that's synonymous with the litter queen. So you've achieved that level.
Maybe
okay?
I don't have to wear the crown as much as I thought.
Next we have, is it Robert, is it Wall?
McNeal.
Sir?
McNeal.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Robert McNally, over a 20-year resident here in Union County. I'm here to support the 2050 plan. I was on the Infrastructure Committee, and I have to say that although there was a lot of back and forth with the committees and within the committees for the things that are recommended in the plan. I believed in the process that was laid out for the plan to be presented to you tonight. It's not going to make everybody happy, but I believed in the process was diligent, and especially given the fact that we went through COVID to do this process, I believe the planning staff did a great job in getting it done. So those are my comments. I hope you approve the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And that concludes our speakers for comprehensive plan hearing. Yes. Oh, go ahead, sir.
So I want to appreciate all the comments and obviously from our committee members. I did want to point out that we have a number of our committee members who came here tonight to speak as well as just show their support for the effort that was put forth for this comp plan. As was said, it's not going to make everyone happy, but it is a path to our future. I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who participated, because it is hard work and you have to take time out of your day to really come and be part of that. So I wanted to recognize those folks that did come to the meeting tonight to say thank you, and also to those people who are not here for their participation. Just want to say thank you for that.
Well, if you worked on that plan, would you please stand, because it was a lot of work, and we do want to thank you for all the diligence and hard work you did. Bjorn, she was telling you to get up. Okay, with that, no other speakers, we'll close the public hearing, and we do thank you all for your support and hard work in that. Is this informal? Next, we have our informal comments, and the litter queen's on the list again.
I didn't want to take up litter time with saying thank you to each and every one of you, commissioners, our manager, our clerks, and I don't ever know who you guys are, but unless I'm up here reading your names. But there are so many people in our Union County government that deserve special recognition, and I'm not even going to try, to go any further than this. But Bjorn, oops, he's gone. Anyway, Bjorn was fantastic in leading this whole process. And let's see, you're still here. Our head of, yes, his boss back there, whose name I don't remember, but
Lee Jensen.
I keep mixing him up with the head of General Services. And I have to mention Ron Gilkerson, the head of the Solid Waste Department, and Chris Medlin at the landfill. Those two have been fantastic in pitching in as litter busters. And if that task force, when that task force is approved, I am sure they will both be part of that task force. They have told me that verbally, although I haven't had them sign on the bottom line yet. But anyway, those two, they actually have started a pickup using their employees on Olive Branch and Austin Cheney, because they know that those roads are the main roads that the trash trucks take and any citizen coming to the landfill. So they're right there supporting us, helping us, and I have to give them a big thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate what you do. Next, we have Mr. Walkup. Did you want to sign? Did you want to speak have something else you had to say? All righty. With that, we'll close our informal comments, and thank you for all that cared to share with us. Next, we have additions, deletions, and adoption to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that agenda item 24 be moved from the consent agenda to old business.
Okay, and we'll move that to item 31A. Okay, any other modifications?
Motion to approve is amended.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have the consent agenda. Motion approved as amended.
Well, motion to approve with Commissioner Williams' removal, I think,
Okay.
number 24.
We have a motion to approve as amended. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. That'll take us to our old business. And it's item 31, consider final approval to formally award a Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant in the amount not to exceed $512,200 paid over a 5-year period. Ron, is there anything else you'd like to?
No, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Motion to approve and formally award the Step 3 Economic Development Incentive Grant to Bonakimi USA in the amount of not to exceed $512,200 paid over a 5-year period, and authorize the county manager to execute an agreement pending legal review.
Okay. We have a motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That brings up item 31A, which is item 24, that was moved off consent. Waive certain requirements for economic development incentive grants. Mr. Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to address this item briefly. It involves a waiver of requirements, specifically job requirements, that are attached to some of our incentive grants for economic development. I can appreciate that this past year has been a unique year. Nonetheless, I think it's important that we set a high standard in terms of our expectations that the businesses that receive these grants ought to be expected to satisfy them. So when they don't satisfy elements of that contract, of that grant, I think they're not due the money, that installment that year. So I would move that we do not waive, that we don't waive the requirements for these economic development incentive grants.
All right, thank you. Ron, would you like to address this? Because my understanding is this waiver is for this past year?
It is, sir.
Okay.
And Chairman Helms, Commissioner Williams, Commissioners, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on this. It is true that whenever we originate an economic development incentive grant, that there are some modest job creation requirements along with the capital investment requirements. So Commissioner Williams, totally appreciate the comments, but if I may, all of these incentive grants, and we're talking about just 4 companies, and all of these incentive grants were awarded prior to 2020 or prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. All the companies for whom we are requesting the job creation forgiveness were heavily impacted by negative market conditions brought on by COVID-19. The job creation is a relatively minor requirement of our incentive agreements because the capital investment that is required is what really impacts our tax revenues. Our aerospace industry, for example, has encountered a worldwide slowdown that has never happened before, and their business is still challenged by restrictions on international flights. With Consolidated Metco, the truck industry took a real nosedive in the second and third quarter of 2020, but only temporarily, as I'll show you. All of these incentive grants were awarded in years of record employment. So the base employment number that we use to compare to we're set at years of record employment. They had the most employees that a lot of these companies had ever had. Overall, these companies, through no fault of their own, had no choice but to reduce staffing but as I'll show, only temporarily. When we look at December of 2020 and compare that to today, so roughly 6 months, in spite of a very challenging labor market, and we see the for hire and now hiring banners and signs all over the place, many of these companies are experiencing a remarkable recovery. ATI, in spite of this continued international downturn in aerospace, continues to recruit for positions that open up due to attrition. Tyson Foods has increased employment by 9%. Since January 1, they've added 124 people. They continue to do off-site recruitment. They have an on-site hiring center there on Seacrest. And they've increased our minimum wage to $15 an hour to try to attract people. Consolidated Metco has increased employment by 20% since January 1. They've added 69 people. And the truck industry has recovered to such a degree that the manufacturers are predicting and planning for the 2022 and 2023 production years are going to be the highest production here in North America in their history. That's companies such as Mack, Freightliner, Volvo. And the biggest point that I want to share with you tonight is that all of these companies have met or exceeded their capital investment requirements. Specifically, if you look at those 4 companies, ATI, Northeast Tool, Tyson Foods, and Consolidated Metco, they report project investment as of December 2020 of just a little under $262 million in capital investment. So in summary, the companies have performed remarkably well in the face of unprecedented market conditions brought on by the pandemic, but they are recovering at an incredible rate. So we firmly believe that the job creation challenges they faced in 2020 was a one-off, a temporary situation. And for these reasons, we respectfully request that you forgive the job creation requirements for this year's incentive payments.
For the past year.
I'm sorry.
Future goes forward, right?
Correct.
It goes back to normal,
Correct. Correct.
okay?
So, and again, thank you for letting me share that, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Commissioner Ray.
I spoke with Commissioner Williams today, who I have developed a tremendous respect. I wanted to ask him, Chairman Helms told me we were going to be pulling it off the consent agenda, and I talked with him, and I certainly understand his reasoning for wanting to not approve it. But I think we lose sight of the fact that property taxes are based on January 1 previous year, of this year. The tax year or the fiscal year that we're talking about is from July 1, 2020 to June 30th. And we'll have to vote on this motion first, but I will not be voting to not allow it because I think back, I try to put myself, July 1 to December, we still didn't know if we was going to have a vaccine. And now the problem, yes, there's plenty of people to go to work, but until these unemployment giveaways from federal government stop, people are going to ride that boat until it runs out of water. And so this, like you said, this is a one-off. We've never seen anything like this in the past. And they're still going to have to hire those people. And, you know, ATI, I know I was so happy when we got the $100+ million investment out there, and then they shuttered the expansion. Airlines, we didn't know if there was going to be an airline industry a year ago,
Yes, sir.
12 months later. I heard this weekend that flights are exceeding pre-pandemic, but it'll still take a while for them to come back. So I certainly respect his opinion. He really puts a lot of time and thought into this. I just wouldn't want him to be my daddy because I think he would not spare the rod and spoil this child. So
All right, thank you, Ron.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ron, what would happen if a company, have we ever had a company not meet the jobs requirement?
Not to my knowledge, not before.
So it's never happened before. Anything to offset this? So you're saying that it was offset by the capital investments, or did everyone offset it with capital investments, or one or two and the rest didn't, or?
We only requested the forgiveness of the job creation on these 4 companies because the other, there's probably a dozen or so grants that are in place that, you know, each business is in a little bit different sector. They did not encounter the reduction in staff that these particular companies did. So, does that answer your question, Commissioner?
Somewhat. I mean, if these companies took this as an opportunity to downsize, or is it a true, they couldn't operate because the governor said you can't open your door?
In my conversation with these companies, and believe me, between this morning and right now, I've had conversations with them. That decision to reduce the number of staff in 2020 was a very, very hard decision. And it did not take place. I truly believe this, that it did not take place as an opportunity to save a line item budget on labor. I think proof of that is the efforts that these companies are taking to try to fill the open positions that they have right now. Consolidated Metco, they have 35 open positions that they need to hire people, and they're looking. So, like Commissioner Rape had said, this situation that we're in with the very generous, I'm just stating fact, the very generous unemployment situation is making it very, very hard for these companies to hire.
So they haven't eliminated the jobs.
They have not.
They just don't have the people to fill those jobs.
That is my understanding.
So they created the jobs. And did they create the jobs they said they would?
I appreciate the fact that you asked that. If you look back at 2018, 2019, they were still operating at record employment levels. And the companies that I mentioned here that encountered the reductions in staff really is just part of that 2020 COVID-19 oddity that's what we've all encountered.
So like the school systems, they didn't lay off employees. The county didn't lay off employees. And these are not due to layoffs. These are not due to, again, them eliminating jobs. This is due to COVID, and this is due, they have the jobs, they're in place, they just can't fill them.
That is my understanding. That is my understanding.
And I'm sure they pay, what's the new buzzword nowadays? Living wage?
Well, we all know ATI and ConMed,
Yeah.
that's very
Very
good living wage.
right? Yeah, very
Yes,
good living
yes.
wage.
And again, Tyson, with their efforts to attract they've increased their walk in the door starting very low skilled position at $15 an hour.
Yeah, so all the fast food workers looking for $15 an hour jobs are welcome to go to these places and fill these jobs, right?
That is one of the reasons that they had to do that.
Yeah, and I would say I respect exactly the position you're taking, Commissioner Williams, because if these are not doing something that the others said they would do, then it wouldn't be fair to the other 8, 10, whatever businesses that were fulfilling it. But watching what people have had to go through, and if they've not eliminated jobs, they just can't fill them because people would rather sit home and be paid by the federal government to sit home. That's not necessarily their fault. So, I'll be voting against the motion and then for relieving this.
Commissioner Ray.
One more thing. I know ATI, I believe, went to halftime because at one point, airlines parked planes and canceled all orders. So, and Tyson has a very large group of diverse employees, and they would have massive outbreaks of COVID in certain departments. And that place has to work, the whole plant has to run, or it's hard for part of the plant to run.
Yes.
So they have been under a tremendous challenge. I'm just glad to see everything back, and of course, this is the first time we've had the regular audience like it is, and I just pray to God that it never happens again, because we know what it did.
Amen, sir.
Commissioner Williams, I know there's at least 3 of us that plan on supporting it.
Well,
We had
I
a good
mean-
conversation today.
Yeah, I appreciate these perspectives, and I'm grateful for all of these companies and what they mean to the economic fabric of the county, believe me. And this is not a condemnation on the economic development process or the grants themselves. These things are paid out in installments, and this is simply, for me, just a very simple matter of, look, this year you didn't happen to meet the requirements of this grant, so you're not getting the installment. It's not a condemnation of you as a company. These aren't funds that are going to break you if you don't get them. They're relatively modest as far as the operation of these entities go. You know, I just look at this, I take a step back and I look at this as a transaction between parties. And, you know, if you're engaged in any other kind of normal commerce and a party doesn't meet, and it doesn't satisfy the obligations of the contract, the other party isn't obliged to deliver. So it's, you know, it's no comment again on any of these fine companies. It's just that they haven't satisfied the requirements of the grant. And for that reason, I think, you know, they shouldn't get the installment. So,
Well,
but again, I appreciate all the comments, and, you know, I think good people can differ, certainly.
Commissioner Ray Hutchins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, if he had told me that they were, you know, laying off people on their own will, I would agree with everything that you're saying. And I would agree, Union County, and this was said something about earlier, we didn't shut Union County down. This Board of Commissioners stood with the businesses of Union County to say, no, we're not going to shut down. And then our state government stepped in, and our governor shut it down. Yes. And he did that. And that's not this board's fault. And you were just coming on or getting ready to come on, I think, when that happened. And that wasn't this board's fault. That wasn't the businesses in this county's fault. That what happened to them, and that was something that again, if it was our fault, you know, I would even be more, you know, I'd say, yeah, we can't condemn somebody for something's our fault. But this was done by an authority over us that we had no control over, and neither did these businesses. So if it wasn't a government, you know, foot on the neck, I would say I would be right there with you. If it was just an economic downturn, I'd be there with you and say, hey, look, you know, you didn't meet your goals. But this is not this is a government created problem, yes, not a economy or business related problem. So I would appreciate it, and I'd like to vote with you if you would change your motion.
Well, I think good people are just going to have to differ on this one, but I mean, I think all these perspectives are, you know, have some merit.
Commissioner Williams, I took your opening comment as a motion.
Yes.
So we have a motion to deny granting the waiver. Any further discussion? All in favor of denying the waiver?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. All opposed? Aye. The waiver passes. Thank you.
But do we need to
take an actual? Okay, then I'll make a motion that we authorize the county manager to draft and execute a waiver substantially consistent with the agenda item. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Next is item 32, appointments to boards and committee. Central Iowa Workforce Development Board, the terms of Eric Tillman, Apprentice Representative, Kelly Stegall, Adult Education Literacy Representative, and Rich Whitstetler, Private Sector Representative, on the Central Iowa Workforce Development expire on June 30th, 2021. These vacancies have been advertised in accordance with board rules, and these individuals have applied for reappointment. The Central Iowa Workforce Development Board is requesting that these members be reappointed. We have a motion to report. We'll take one at a time. Motion to appoint the three representatives. Mr. Tillman, Ms. Stegall, Ms. Whitterslater, boy, I botched that, to the boards.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the Ag Advisory Board. There's a vacancy for an unexpired term on the Ag Advisory Board due to the death of a member who served in that position. The term expires June 2022. This vacancy has been advertised according to the board rules of procedure for the number of months. 2 applications have been received, Ron Cox and Tony Helms.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
2 excellent candidates for fulfilling the term here. I just want to point out that this particular board has statutory requirements with regard to townships and farmland preservation districts. So despite the qualifications of both, I'm going to recommend Tony Helms for that position.
Okay. Have a nomination. Any discussion? All in favor of Mr. Helms?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have the Union County Home and Community Care Block Grant Advisory Committee. Patricia Kindley's term has expired on this committee. Ms. Kindley has applied for reappointment. There are several other vacancies. The vacancies have been advertised in accordance with board rules of procedure. Dr. Angela Giles Charles has also submitted her application to serve on this committee.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Motion to reappoint Ms. Kinley and appoint Dr. Angela Giles Charles to the committee.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item is Jury Commission. Gary Sledick, term of the Jury Commission expires June 2021. Mr. Sledick has applied for reappointment to the commission. The vacancy has been advertised in accordance with the Board of Rules and Procedures. Motion to reappoint Mr. Sledick.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, we have the Monroe Union County Work Group on Wastewater Resources. On May 20th, 2021, the Union County Board of Commissioners approved forming a collaborative work group along with the City of Monroe in order to evaluate water resources and recommend options for using the combined resources of both governments to meet the current and future needs of our residents. Same action was approved by the Monroe City Council. It is agreed that the work group will consist of 2 elected members from each board and 2 elected members from the council, along with both city managers and county manager.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I would like to place for nomination Commissioner Rape and Commissioner Williams to fill those two positions.
Okay. We have a nomination. Do you gentlemen agree with serving on these positions? Okay.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, we have a nomination, and any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. Next, we have a presentation from Union County Public Schools regarding the FY 2022 budget priorities and objectives.
Good evening, Chairman Helms and Board of County Commissioner members. It's always a pleasure to get the opportunity to come and speak. Joining with me this evening are members of our board, Ms. Merrill, our chair, who you're going to hear from in just a little bit with regards to the details of the presentation, Ms. Heintel, Mr. Price, as well as Shauna McLam, our CFO. So let me begin this evening, number one, by thanking you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I also want to speak directly to the Board of County Commissioners and say thank you. This past year, this past series of years, I believe, the relationship between the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Education has been at its all-time best. And as the superintendent of Union County Public Schools, I want to acknowledge that and thank you all as board members for working in tandem and partnership with us. I also want to take an opportunity to thank Mr. Watson and his team, specifically to Deputy Commissioner Ms. Lancaster, Mr. Hart, and Ms. Lyles as it pertains to the budget process. You all have been great partners to work with us during the past year, and we very much appreciate you. I also would say that the relationship between both administrations, staff to staff, is at an all-time high. I've thoroughly enjoyed working directly, much more directly, with Mr. Watson, our county manager. I think that communication efforts, the work with the Department of Health and Human Services and Mr. Joyner, and just overall leadership in this county is, again, tremendously positive, productive, and effective. And so from our senior administrative team, Mark, to you and yours, thank you very much. When I arrived in Union County Public Schools 5 years ago, I informed our board, our principals, our teachers, our staff, our community, that there was one vision and one goal that I had personally and professionally for our school system. And it was to be the best school system in the state, in the region, and in the nation. And while many will argue and widely believe that perhaps in some ways we've accomplished that during the last 5 years, as superintendent, I always believe that we can continuously improve. We can always get better, no matter what. And as a system, while I'm very, very proud of our accomplishments, I do not believe we have achieved our ultimate best, especially given the challenges associated this past year with the pandemic and where we are. As you can very well imagine, to be the best school system in the nation requires a lot. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of vision, and there are so many different categories that with your support we've addressed to try to get there, including work around our school system culture, academic excellence, financial stability, facilities improvement, safety, physical, mental, social, and emotional. All of these different categories have had local dollars appropriated to them in the past, and we're very appreciative of your support of our continuous improvement and growth. The budget request submitted to you tonight is a very much forward-facing request. While the request exceeds what we have historically received, these dollars are primed to position or to accomplish 3 primary goals. Number 1, provide funding that will cover state mandates such as benefits, insurance, etc. Number 2, provide funding that will assist Union County Public Schools in continuing to serve a very high-performing district academically and non-academically. And number 3, providing funding that will impact our capital and facilities needs across many school and district locations. And again, the details of that, our chair, Ms. Merrill, will present to you in just a few minutes. One signature common goal that is a hallmark of this request, and one that we all would agree, I hope, is one of the most important for any organization: recruiting, developing, retaining, and compensating a highly effective workforce. In other words, taking care of our current and future employees. This specific aspect of this request will accomplish the following objectives, and there are 4 of them. Number 1, it will greatly assist us as a district in recruiting and retaining the best employees in our school system. Number 2, it will position the district to remain competitive with surrounding school districts and counties and other like industries such as private and charter. Number 3, it will allow us to invest more deeply into our staff and develop their talent so they choose to stay here in Union County and Union County Public Schools. And number 4, it communicates and sends a message to our employees that they matter, that they're valuable. And I think of any years in which that message has to be sent, it's this year. While this budget request may be significant in size, it is a request that is important, that is needed, and that must be sustained. To that end, Mr. Watson and I and our staff have agreed that when it comes to future compensation, we must do a better job of building in a sustainable compensation model so that a future budget request of this size can be minimal. And pending your decision, whenever you make that, I will work hand in hand with Mr. Watson on developing a multi-year, long-term plan for our employees and for our school system so that every year incremental steps can be added as opposed to one large compensation chunk like you see before. With that said, however, now is the time that we're asking you all to act on this matter, as it will position our school system to continue in its journey to become the best school system in this nation. I would now like to yield the floor, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Merrill, our chair of the school board, unless there are any questions that I can answer.
I have one comment, Drew. I am so proud that we have arrived at where we're at tonight. I know I had ponies when I was young, and if you get a kookaburra under the blanket, under the saddle, you'll have a problem. And I know I have been a kookaburra, but you have risen to the occasion, and I am so proud of where we're at tonight. As you say, all we had to do was just talk to each other, and I can't say enough things. Never thought I'd say it, but of course, I told you the first time I met you, if you'd listened to me, I'd make you the best superintendent in the United States.
I hear you.
Okay. Didn't I?
I'm listening. I heard you, and I still hear you.
Okay.
But I did say that, didn't I?
You did say that. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rape.
Yes, Ms. Merrill. Now, don't be a kookaburra. Just kidding.
Well, we know that I have been. So,
No.
just want to verify how we advance the slides before we get started. Is there a... Oh, this arrow, okay, okay, very good. So, good evening. I don't have a crown, and I remember all of your names. So, but thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given to us to be here tonight to present our budget request. Following up from our joint meeting back in March. I also want to acknowledge that our two liaisons that have worked so closely with Chairman Helms and Vice Chair Dennis Rape. We have our two liaisons, Todd Price and Kathy Heintel, here tonight, along with Shauna McLam, our CFO, if there are any questions when we get through this presentation. So what we have tonight is a very short, abbreviated presentation from the full document that you received on May 14th. And like Dr. Houlihan already said, our budget priorities for 2021-22 is sustaining operations, investing in employees, program expansions and new initiatives, along with investing in our future, as Dr. Houlihan very well outlaid to you. Here's our operating budget. And we were able to identify with each department several months ago more than $2 million in our existing budget that we were able to redirect to put into this budget, this request. For sustaining operations, you will see state mandates, and the reason that they're highlighted, every number that you see on this presentation and the next slide, these are completely out of our control. These are state mandates and local requirements that regardless of what you are able to approve for us in the next budget cycle, no matter what, this money is going to be due. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Kathy and I wanted to make sure that each of you knew that with the $3.39 million that was a projected increase, that these highlighted numbers is going to exceed that a little bit. So we have facilities increases that have already increased. We have property and liability insurance increases, and then we have lost revenue because our enterprise funds for child nutrition, we were not able to charge for any of those items to be able to pay ourselves. So, these are needs that we do need. Roman numeral 3, investing in our employees. And this is something that I came before you last year and acknowledged that, you know, we're in a critical situation, still having to operate on a 2018 state budget. You know, it's 2021 and things have increased. If the state legislature increases the non-certified and certified staff, this will be due. And so that's why we wanted to point that out to you tonight, along with projected average increases of 8%. So that alone is 2.7 million. Above you have the 1 million. And just like I spoke to you last year, you know, transportation is something that is very critical for Union County Public Schools. At last check, we were short over 50 drivers. And every time I talk to drivers who are thinking about leaving Union County Public Schools or have already put in their resignation, it is pay. And sometimes they are leaving us not only to go to other counties and other school districts, but sometimes they're coming to the county. And it's simply an hourly rate, wage reason. We had a 3-year plan that we brought to the county 5 years ago, and we were able to honor the year 1 plan in 2018-19, and then we did the year 2 plan. Then last year, we didn't have enough funds to take care of that year 3. And so we just want to make sure that you understand that the district compensation study for transportation and support staff, we're now in year 4, almost 5, of that compensation study that we did back in 2018 and brought to you. So we'd really like to get that off the books with your approval. Other supplement increases, we've had significant conversations with each of you since our joint meeting, where we were able to talk to you about the local stipend for our classroom teachers, and the need for our school nurses, psychologists, and social workers. And then finally, you'll see that we are proposing, on average, a $1 per hour for our drivers. And what we're thinking about doing there, it would, with your approval, it would be a tier, and we would do it based on years of service to Union County Public Schools, starting at a $1.25 increase, then $1, and beginning at 75 cents. And we think that would significantly help our bus drivers, recruiting and retaining bus drivers. Operating budget continued. You'll see the additional enrollment projections. We're currently paying out from our finance department, from the money you provide us, out to approximately 30 charter schools. I know that you're probably thinking there's only a handful in Union County, but a lot of our students do go outside of Union County. And so we're actually, from our finance department, cutting checks to approximately 30 charter schools right now. And their increased enrollment, we will need those funds to get those bills paid for charter school. Then we have athletics. Our high school athletic directors are currently 10-month employees, and I'm sure each one of you here know that our athletics run year-round through the summers and the school year. So we are proposing moving our high school athletic directors from 10-month to 12-month employees. And the only new position that we are proposing in this budget is in our technology services. I'm sure everyone here has met James Parker, our CTO, and he and his staff are having to work through the weekends because of people trying to come into our systems late at night and all throughout the day, 24/7. So he has requested that one position, and I just want you to know that is the only new position that we would be adding with your approval. So at the bottom of this, you will see that that our request is over what we asked for last year. But please know that the 4.7 million alone is what we need just if we do the state mandates and our local requirements like paying for the charter schools, okay? That brings us to our capital budget. So you can see the 6 items listed for our facilities needs. And then new vehicles for the vehicles that are aging out or have too many miles on them. And then our existing laptop payments for our teacher and admins that were done several years ago. And then the following year after we did teacher and admin, we did a lease payment for our grades 6 through 12. And now our 3 through 5 students. So you can see those lease payments that we need to make this year for those devices that are currently in hand. We will be providing band uniforms to Weddington High School this year with your approval. And you can see that our capital request is roughly $19.5 million. The next slide you've seen before, but again, Union County Public Schools is maintaining and taking care of 233 structures across the county. Okay, so that brings us to our summary, the proposed fund request. And again, I just want to point out that the projected increase that we were provided from the county was just under $3.4 million that I believe you were budgeting for Union County Public Schools this year. But again, I want to remind you, just with the state mandates, the charter school payments, we're at $4.7 million if we didn't do anything else. So the additional funding request is almost 5.8 million difference. For local compensation needs, we have been doing market analysis every year. And so for our non-certified support staff and the COLA increases, our district continues to lose market position in the state to our surrounding districts, even South Carolina. Our bus drivers and safety assistants have not received an increase since 2017. So you can see the 1.5 total there. All of these numbers are pulled from slide 3. So if you go back, you'll be able to find these numbers and how they, the totals that came here. Under local supplement increases, just for our classroom teachers, their last increase for their local stipend was in 2017. And in 2018, our local teacher stipend was ranked number 12 in North Carolina. This year, our teacher stipend has dropped all the way to number 19 compared to the other 115 school districts. So we've dropped significantly. Our proposal in this budget is to increase our local teacher stipend $1,000, and as long as the 115 other school districts don't increase their stipend, that would bring us to number 10. It would put us in the top 10 for our teachers. Our local supplement increase for our school nurses, psychologists, and social workers, they have not had an increase since 2012. And we are proposing to get them up to market where they need to be. We're proposing, depending on their experience and how long they've been with Union County Public Schools, somewhere between $2,500 or $3,000 to get them where they need to be. So we've talked about this many times. Union County Public Schools over the last many years has come in as the #3 school district for all public schools, 115 school districts across North Carolina. And I think it's very important to talk about who is #1, who is #2, and I know what is our vision for Union County Public Schools. And we all agree that money doesn't fix everything. We can agree on that. But I think it is important to see how other counties are funding their schools, either through their total per pupil expenditure, but even more important, how are they being funded locally? And you can see that if you just look at local per pupil expenditure, Union County Public Schools ranks 29th, while #2 Polk County is, we're receiving $2,267. #2 locally, Polk County, their county is providing them $2,567. And that gives them a small bump up to #22. So that is a nice, it's much better than #29. And then, of course, #1 is Chapel Hill Carborough Schools. They locally are receiving $6,417 from their county just for per pupil expenditure. So when you look at Union County Public Schools, our students are receiving $8,781 approximately per student. And #2 is Polk County is at $11,000, and #1 is almost at $13,000 per pupil. So what are our objectives? What have our achievements been during a global pandemic? And the really great partnership we've had with the county to get through this past year. So in 2020-21, we are struggling to sustain operations based on a 2018 budget. Those are dollars. We are wanting to invest in our employees as the largest employer in your county, our county, Union County. Student growth, as we are the 6th largest district, and also trying to make sure we have enough money to fund the charter school, the students from our county that choose charter schools. Program enhancements, expansions in athletics and cybersecurity, and our continued capital needs for 213 structures across this county. So what have our achievements been, and why do I feel like we even deserve to be here before you tonight to ask for such a big request? You know, COVID-19 has been difficult, and when our doors closed last March, we've pretty much been drinking by a fire hose ever since, trying to, take care of our taxpayers and do the best we can to follow the mandates coming out of Raleigh. So it is extremely important for everyone in Union County to know, and the members here tonight, that Union County Public Schools reopened their doors on August 17th, 2020. We were the largest school district in the state that opened during COVID-19. And we had 7 or 8 other school districts. We had many school districts that contacted Dr. Houlihan wanting to meet with him and our staff on how are we doing this? Can we come visit to see what your schools look like? How are you doing your temperature checks? How are you handling the mask? How are you keeping masks on 5th graders? How are you able to do this for 42,000 students when they only have 4,000 or 5,000 students? So we had many school districts across the state that did contact our superintendent wanting to know, okay, what's your model? How are you doing it? Not only did we transition from offering 1 day a week to 2 days a week to 4 days a week, and as soon as, because of the vaccines in February and March, we were able to bring everyone back from spring break 5 days a week. And I will tell you, our email box was flooded. That was not a popular decision, but I can tell you that because of our superintendent, cabinet staff, and our Board of Education, we have always remembered that our taxpayers and our parents, our grandparents, we are here for one reason, and that is to educate 42,000 students. And after seeing the fall results of how students were actually performing during COVID, we knew they needed to be back in the classroom, not online, and for the ones that chose to be online. So not only were we offering a Plan A and Plan B in-person school district, we were also, in the snap of a finger, operating a K through 12 virtual academy, and completely taking care of those parents and those students who could not be in our schools or did not feel they could be in our schools, and making sure that we had the teachers and the staff to not only take care of in-person, but also the K through 12 virtual academy. So in my mind, that's 2 different school districts, because that was a challenge, I will tell you. We also had middle school, high school athletics despite COVID-19. We had 5 state championships. We held proms, band, theater, and chorus. In 2020, Union County Public Schools seniors were the only 12th graders in North Carolina that got their senior grades, because the state board and DPI, they said they couldn't. But the Union County Public Schools Board met, and we voted 9-0 that we would offer our 12th graders the same option that the state was giving grades 9, 10, and 11, their classmates, the option of either pass, withdraw, or their numerical grade. But they said 12th graders could not have their numerical grade. So we worked with Representative Dean Arp and Senator Todd Johnson, got a local bill written, and I am proud to tell you that the class of 2020 in Union County Public Schools are the only 12th graders in North Carolina, because of our partnerships and willing to do the right thing for our students always. They are about 34, almost 3,500 students in Union County Public Schools are the only ones that got their numerical grade last year. And I believe it was around 92, 93% of our seniors opted for their numerical grade. We held 13 graduations last June, and last week we held 13 more graduations. Military, academic, athletic, and CTE signing days for our students. We provided meals from March 13th, 2020 through this year with our wonderful SROs. We reopened after school in January to assist with our working parents. And just recently, Superintendent Dr. Houlihan was named Superintendent of the Year for the Southwest region, which includes, I believe, 9 school districts. And with that honor, being the Superintendent of the Year for the Southwest region, Dr. Houlihan, our superintendent, will now compete for Superintendent of the Year in hopes of receiving the A. Craig Phillips State Award. So we look forward to that. In closing, our partnership with the chair and the vice chair, the county manager, the deputy county manager, and all the conversations we've been having during this very difficult time, We've had amazing communications with the Department of Health, Union County government, and our UCPS staff. Together, we've been able to coordinate vaccination clinics between Atrium and UCPS nurses. You have approved design fees for Forest Hills High School and East Elementary. You have provided one-time payments for our school nurses. And finally, you just approved about a month or so ago a one-time payment to all Union County Public School employees. And for that, I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, your willingness to meet, text, call, receive questions, answer questions. It has been a very, very great relationship to have with the county between our schools and this board and this staff over the past year, and we cannot say thank you enough, because from our point of view, most people who live in Union County come here for our schools. And our vision is not to make it to number 2 or number 1 in North Carolina. Our vision is to be the best school district in the nation, and I think it's going to be because of our commitment to working together. Do you have any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Merrill. Could you go back one slide to number 9?
Absolutely.
I found that to be an interesting breakdown of rankings in terms of local per pupil expenditure, total per pupil expenditure. One thing that's not on there, which I found interesting when we had our joint meeting, was the state per pupil expenditure out of 116 county and municipal school districts. Could you share with everybody here and whoever's watching online just where Union County Public Schools ranks there?
I do not have that chart with me.
We don't have just the state, but we're ranked 105.
No, I mean not total, but state per pupil.
The average per pupil for the state.
Right, when you look at state funding.
I know I have it in my briefcase.
Let's just look.
The average, I believe, I'll go to my briefcase.
Okay.
I can find it.
That's total per pupil. We rank 105. That's total.
That's total. The
Your state rank the state is 116.
Can I just say that with you?
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to have you go to all that trouble. But
I didn't bring the big one with me. I brought this one, so, okay.
But yeah, just
Is that what you were looking for?
yeah, just
Okay.
that you're in terms of state per pupil
Yeah.
expenditures, you're 116.
Why didn't I think about putting that on there?
Yeah.
We're dead last.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number 116.
Yeah, I mean that's
So
mind
thank you
blowing.
thank you for remembering that.
Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you. There was some speakers earlier in the night that had made some comments about some vaccination requirements, other things with the school system. Would you like an opportunity to
Absolutely.
address that?
I would love to speak on that. So, Dr. Houlihan, those speakers were at our meeting this past Tuesday. And so Dr. Houlihan went on record and communicated to everyone watching at home and to all of the speakers. I can't even remember how many speakers we had Tuesday night, but he communicated that we have no plans, no dates to offer vaccinations in our schools during school hours without parent consent. That he was on public record with that. That is not in the plans. So that addresses vaccinations, and their comments were about charter schools Union County Public Schools was not doing this, but the comments they made were from charter schools that were offering that without parental consent.
Any other things they said that there was a lot said, so I don't.
The other thing, I know there's a lot of concern about critical race theory, being offered in Union County Public Schools. And what you may or may not know is that the State Board of Education and DPI, I believe back in February, changed the state standards for social studies K through 12. So it does begin all the way in kindergarten. And the state board had a meeting last week. Their next meeting is on June 18th. And they could not even come to an agreement on the unpacking documents for K through 5 and some other items at their meeting last week. So we will have to wait and see what happens on June 18th with the state board. But I believe one comment was that we're already a year behind. Well, the truth is that this has been in the works for 2 years. The state has actually been working on this for 2 years. And I know Catherine Truitt has spoken on this, the new superintendent. I have been vocal and spoken out against this at the detriment to my own safety. And I can just tell you that as the chair of Union County Public Schools curriculum, we are waiting on those unpacking documents from the state to be sent to all districts so that we can decide how to deliver those new standards to Union County Public School students. But that hasn't even happened yet because we haven't received the unpacking documents. But, you know, I'm not sure that, we have not had a vote on this, but I do not believe that is something that we would ever want to do, to offer critical race theory in Union County Public Schools, because I believe the majority of our families would be outraged, and we've already received many threats and emails from Union County parents saying that they will withdraw their children from Union County Public Schools if we introduce critical race theory. So interestingly enough, this weekend we found out that they have come up with a new acronym for CRT. I didn't bring my phone with me. What's the new acronym for CRT? Toss me my phone. So the new acronym for CRT that everyone needs to be aware of, bear with me, I apologize, I should have written this down knowing it would come up. It is culturally responsive teaching.
One question about the slide that we have. So these are the top 3 districts in North Carolina. And of these,
according to niche data that most everyone follows,
means
correct?
the scores.
So what niche uses is they look at our EOG scores, end of course grades, ACT, SAT, biology, Math 1, I believe it's English 2. They look at all of those scores, and for the last several years, we have remained number 3, and Chapel Hill Carrboro has remained number 1. The only thing that I've seen move is number 2.
Okay. One comment that I've made before, and I'll make again tonight, is that Union County Public Schools should be commended for, and the staff and the teachers should be commended for the efficiency. If there is a ranking in the nation, I would like to see the efficiency rating, that here you are the top 3rd consistently in the number 3 ranking at the lowest funding from the state, the lowest
dead last
funding from the state, and you are 29th in the state in local funding. Yet our teachers, which consist of a lot of Union County children who have grown up through the Union County public school system and gone on to teach in the Union County public school system. I have a lot of friends, a lot of classmates that are wonderful Union County teachers and work in the school system. So that's a strong message. If you want to be number one in anything, check the efficiency rating of what you get and what you use it for and how you do it. And these schools that come and talk to Dr. Houlihan, I tell you, I got an idea for you. Maybe charge them for a little bit of that info. So Union County taxpayers benefit from that. Don't just give it to them for free, charge them for it, because you should be charging for it. You all should be charging for it as a system that, again, that you do it somehow, you do it efficiently. And Union County, that's our goal, I think, here, is to do it efficiently. You know, people ask us, don't waste, don't waste. And the people who are not here tonight, 10 years ago, this conversation would be had in a room with standing room only, people out the hallway, raising Cain. And we have come a long way in this period of time. And you have gotten a lot of grief lately, so I'm gonna give you some, not so much grief, I'm gonna give you some pats on the back. You have been here through that time period, and you have done a wonderful job. If people could see the meetings that you and I and Kathy and others have been in, you know, trying our best to come up with a way to do this for the children of Union County. How to do it, haggling. You know, I'd rather haggle with you than Kathy over money. But y'all.
I'm not sure what that means
Kathy,
for
I'm sorry,
me.
you don't like me calling you. Kathy's a little tougher on the money, but y'all have done a excellent, efficient job. And how many years have you been chairman?
I've been on the board for 7 years and chair for 6.
Okay, so most of your time on the board, that speaks to your leadership, that speaks to the choices that you've all made and how your board is done. So congratulations, you have run an efficient system. And one last question, there was a protest years ago that we all discussed and had issues over about the time the budget problem started. And teachers from Union County went up to protest. What was that protest over? It was budgetary issues, or what? It was
Teaching
May.
assistants, maybe?
Do you remember what?
Teacher assistants? Oh, that one. Okay, whoo, Red for Ed. That's
Right.
the one?
The-
Okay, in Raleigh. Okay,
Right.
that protest, okay.
What was that over? Budgetary issues? What was that?
That was over state pay and benefits for teachers.
Okay, there's not been any in the last, are the teachers going up and asking for the governor to please sign a budget?
During
or-
COVID-19, this past May, they didn't, but the 2 prior Mays, they did,
And they've asked.
pre-COVID.
So they've asked the governor to please sign the budget.
I do not believe they asked the
Okay.
governor to sign the budget that was before him, or the mini bills.
All right. Well, thank you again for all the work you do, and I apologize for taking up so much
Oh,
time,
no.
Mr. Chairman.
Melissa, we have really enjoyed working together. We have accomplished, like Dr. Houlihan said, a working relationship that works for Union County, and we appreciate y'all's contribution, our staff's contribution in this board too. We thank you very much.
Thank you. No other questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
I tell you, Union County Public Schools is a fantastic organization, and we're very blessed here in Union County that we've got multiple schools that do us an outstanding job. And also South Piedmont Community College that does an outstanding job for our young people. Dr. Farr, would you like to speak and share anything with us? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but Dr. Farr, since she got here, she's come up with some creative solutions and workarounds that have really benefited Union County. We really appreciate what you've done.
Thank you, thank you. I very much appreciate the board and the service provided to our college. And as you said, during COVID, we had a lot of innovation. We were able to use the funding that we did receive as COVID relief to advance our services so that we could provide more virtual services for our students. So as I come up here, I really do give you a heartfelt thank you for everything. and for the support.
Tell them a little bit about that, the 2 rooms you have that you've tested that's kind of leading edge.
Yes, the hybrid flex. One of the investments that we made, and we are this summer piloting 2 classrooms that allow for any of the courses taught in those classrooms to have an option for the students to be seated in the classrooms, to have a virtual synchronous experience, or to be asynchronous online within the same course. And during the semester, students can move from each of those modalities as life happens for them, and they may find themselves doing better in one modality over another. And our goal is to get all of our classrooms to have that level of flexibility so that it's a much more personalized experience for our students, and it does help in times of disruption such as a pandemic. So
Thank you very much for what you do.
Appreciate it.
Next, we have county manager's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. A couple of items this evening. One, I'm very sad to report that we have had the passing of a Union County Public Works employee, Mr. Corey Cahalane, passed away as a result of an off-duty accident on May the 30th, and Corey leaves behind a wife and 2 small children, and our thoughts and prayers go out to that family. You may have seen, as you came into the building this afternoon, a film crew out in front of the Government Center, and that was none other than Good Morning America. And they were here today to interview one of our Union County 911 dispatchers, Ms. Carrie Michaels, who a couple of weeks ago took a call from a mother who had just delivered her baby at home. And Carrie talked her through some of the things that she needed to be doing during that very important time, and stayed with her on the phone until the paramedics and the father of her child arrived. And as I understand, Liz Catherine, this interview will be Thursday morning? Tentatively Thursday morning. Okay, so y'all will let us know. But today, what happened in the courtyard is Carrie Michaels got to meet the mother of the child that she helped on the telephone that day. So very special time. And last but not least, we have a member of our board having a very special birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Chairman Helms.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
No hat. We had to wear the Mr. Magoo hat.
Hey, when you get 75, that is a Mr. Magoo. What are you talking about? Commissioner Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly want to thank Pastor Coble for our invocation this evening. Thank all those speakers who came and spoke in reference to our budget, and want to particularly thank those who volunteered, who spoke, and who participated in 2050 plan, a vision for the future of our county. Appreciate your time. That's a long process, and it takes a lot of effort to give of your time. I'd also like to ask for your thoughts and your prayers. One of our finest here in Union County, Everett Medlin, who is an innovator and a leader in our farm community, and also has spent many years on the planning board, is seriously ill, and I want to recognize that fact and think about him this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Rushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to discuss some of the things that we heard earlier during the budget or the public hearing. Mr. Walkup, I believe, had said something about the 2050 committee or the plan that had come up, and his concerns of outward growth, and this board, addressed some of those concerns a few meetings ago when when we're limiting the range of sewage and how far out we're going with the sewage. And I think Commissioner Simpson put it, we're protecting those present use areas of agriculture by doing that. So we are, as a board, recognizing that and working toward that and understand that the citizens want that. And I believe the 2050 committee has come up with a plan for the county that, I can support. Of course, you don't always support everything that you see or hear, and there are parts of it like that were recommended to be taken out, like the quarter-cent sales tax, and I agree with that, and some other issues. But overall, I think it was a hard thought-out plan and a good plan that we can get behind for the future of the county. Also, there were some questions about any kind of money and funds that we're going to receive from the federal government of strings attached. If we could please get those, anything as soon as possible where we may have strings attached to that funding that would require vaccinations, that would require any kind of passports, anything like that might be in there. If we could please figure that out as soon as possible with legal and let this board know before we make any decisions there. Lastly, the revenue neutral rate, and I've spoken about this a lot, especially on social media. I asked the staff to prepare a pie chart and a comparison showing basically where the county, the funding that we will be giving to the schools, the funding we would be giving to law enforcement, the funding we would be giving to county government will go down and expect a change of $1.5 million if the towns maintain the same tax rate or don't go to a revenue neutral tax rate. That's very important because I saw one of the mayors of those towns talk about how they were going to, they're working for all the people of Union County, not just the people of their town, but at the same time, the formulas that they're using and keeping their rates the same does exactly that. It takes away from the school system. It takes away from the county to the point where we have to talk about a tax increase of a penny just to make sure that we don't lose as much as we could. So please, towns, consider what you're doing to your residents that in this reval year where rates went up substantially. And I think Mr. Thomas had said you saw a $29 figure. That's just on the average. Some people will face in these towns a 100%, 50%. I personally my home will see a 50% increase if the county stayed the same. So by the county dropping our rate to 58 or in that area, at least I do recoup that, and then that average goes to that figure that you were talking about. But in some of these towns, they're going to bear the full brunt. Some of the people who can least afford it are going to bear the full brunt of that increase with no relief. And I would hope that the towns would reconsider if they're thinking. I really do believe there's a lot of misinformation going around in the towns about the effect of a revenue neutral rate or what they should and shouldn't do. And it affects all the county taxpayers as well. I don't live in a municipality. It doesn't affect me. Don't have any property in a municipality. Doesn't affect me tax-wise. But the people we all represent, it does affect. And it can have a dramatic effect if the rates are not adjusted even to half of revenue neutral. Whatever it is, they have to adjust them to understand that that's a complete tax increase and huge increase in revenues for those towns if they don't adjust that rate. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good week. Mr. Williams.
I was also very much heartened by many of the public comments I heard tonight. And found a lot of agreement. I'd like to also maybe pivot a little bit off of some of the comments regarding the comprehensive plan. I think overall it's an excellent plan, and I think it does a lot to kind of protect and enlarge the green spaces. And speaking for myself, one of the things that makes Union County wonderfully different from our northern neighbor is that we embrace some of that rural lifestyle. We don't want to be just an undifferentiated part of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And I think the comprehensive plan goes a long way in kind of making that statement. So I was very pleased with a lot of the comments there and basically agree. There was another comment made during public comments that I'd like to kind of pivot off of, and it really touches on what we're looking at during this budget period in terms of the tax rate. Well, obviously, there's been a revaluation. At some point, we as a board are going to have to decide on what that tax rate is, whether it's revenue neutral or perhaps, as has been proposed, a cent above revenue neutral. But it's important to keep, I think, those alternatives in perspective. What would a 1 cent increase from the revenue neutral rate, what would the outcome of that be? Well, for a $290,000 medium home value, which is what we have median in Union County, that's $29 extra a year. Now, what if you have a couple vehicles at your house? Most of us do. What if your vehicle is valued at $13,000? Well, then your taxes on your personal property, on your vehicle, is going to drop $38. So you actually have a tax decrease. So I think it's important, whatever this board decides, if we go with a 1 cent increase or we stay revenue neutral, I think it's pretty important to keep in mind that these are very marginal, modest amounts that we're talking about. Thank you.
Commissioner Ray.
Well, I always like to congratulate all of our organization employees because it's hard to believe we're about to finish up another budget. Van, I know everybody knows, but you did lose your father since we met last as a regular meeting, and I'm sorry for that. And Beverly, your daughter, mopped up at Parkwood with awards and all that. And being a Parkwood graduate, me and Jerry, I had to call that out. But tonight, my focal point is going to be where we've reached with the school board. Remember tonight, it's going to be a challenge for next year. It's going to be a challenge for future boards. But I am so happy where we're at. And let's try to keep it between the ditches next year and do the same thing again. That's all.
And myself, I think Commissioner Williams made an excellent point. Technically, there are three items in your property tax. According to state statute, the only one they consider for revenue neutral is your residence. That's the only one we'll touch. But you've got your resident, you've got the automobile that he mentioned, and also personal property. So we are actually coming in, maybe I can't call it revenue neutral, but you're coming in where you don't owe as much tax on average. And I appreciate that. And I can tell you that recent social media actions, I've received numerous calls from mayors and council concerning the criticism by this board. The position of one board member does not constitute the position of the entire Board of Commissioners. This board and staff has worked very hard to improve the relationship with schools, municipalities, and our community partners. It is not our intent to criticize or challenge how municipalities manage their financial situation. Many have told me about plans they have, and it's more than just this year. That's their business with their constituents. The opinions of the individual commissioner, therefore, is their opinion and not the board representative of the Board of County Commissioners. And we appreciate your time, and with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you get, I think you need that one too.